Japan has lost more than 1 million people since 2022. In the coming years, the population of many other developed countries will also begin to decline. This video is about why birth rates around the world are plummeting, what this means for humanity and you personally, and whether we can change this alarming trend. To understand the scale of the problem, we need to deal with the numbers first. In the USA, the average number of births per woman is 1.7, in the European Union 1.5. In most Asian countries the situation is even worse. South Korea has 0.9 births per woman, China 1.2 and Japan 1.3. To keep any population stable, the rate should be 2.1. 2 children to replace a woman and her partner, 0.1 to account for childhood mortality. The situation in Africa is much better, the rate here is about 4.1 on average, and mainly because of that, the world population will continue to grow for some time. Let's talk about why fertility matters. The main problem is not that there will be fewer people in general. The tragedy is that with falling birth rates and increasing life expectancy, there are fewer young people. This is a population pyramid. It's been like this for the entire history of humankind. Young people have been the most numerous in the population of any country. And that makes sense, fertility was high and mortality increased with age. But now look at the population pyramid of Japan. The median age here is 49. That means that half of the population is over 49. 30% of citizens are over 65, and 65 is the retirement age in Japan. 1/3 of the country is retired or about to be retired, and that percentage is growing. A shrinking working population leads to an infinite number of problems. Firstly, fewer working young or middle-aged people means less tax money for everything, including a comfortable life for older adults, who are the primary consumers of health services, for example. There will be nothing to pay decent pensions with because pensions are mainly paid at the expense of the currently working population. You can raise taxes, but then you slow economic growth. Secondly, a smaller working population means fewer economic benefits. There will be fewer breakthrough startups that can improve our lives, and there will be less productivity. A 70-year-old man, simply because of his age, cannot work as much as a 30-year-old, and to build a disruptive business at 70, one has to be superhuman. And that is not only about economic growth and technological innovations. Political progress is largely determined by people under 60. Sure, looking at the political establishment of some countries, it may seem otherwise, but this is not about politicians, it is about people who demand change, through large-scale social movements or ordinary electoral votes. If most people in your country are old, the state will consider their interests first. You can imagine what could come out of this. Would the environment be as important to an older person as it is to a younger person? Will low taxes for small businesses or high pensions be a priority? Let us now talk about why the fertility rate is so low in most places. There are many reasons, I will outline the key ones. Urbanization. In the past, most people lived in villages. Having lots of children there is a good decision. They can help with chores from a young age, milking cows or harvesting crops in the field. In the city, children are useless, just another mouth to feed. No kid is going to help his clerk dad with the paperwork. In addition to that, housing costs are much higher than in the village. So the real reason for the decline in fertility is not urbanization per se, but money. Ask a couple today why they are in no hurry to have children. There is a good chance they will answer because children are expensive. Parents in developed countries will have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars per child. Everyone wants the kid to eat and dress well, go to a good school and then to university. All these things eat up a significant percentage of the budget. However, urbanization and finance are not the only reasons for the decline in birth rate. Another one is women's freedom and education. Until recently, it was uncommon for women to have a career. Most of them were housewives and involved in child rearing. That was the norm. But it's a different world today. A female professor, manager or architect is no longer a strange joke, but an everyday occurrence. Simply put, there is a choice now, to raise many children or to build a career. It's very difficult to combine the two. That choice is also possible thanks to contraception. People can have sex without having children. In the past, if you were in good health, children just appeared. Now, childbearing is a rational decision that has to be made, and when people start thinking about whether they should have children, they get a gloomy picture, because there are a lot of downsides which are clear to everyone. Firstly, children are a huge expense. Secondly, there will be less time for career, entertainment, and friends. And the pros of having a baby are less obvious. You may have heard from parents that children are joy. But firstly, some parents will say otherwise. Secondly, you can get joy from a bunch of other sources by spending less. Perhaps the baby's first steps will bring more happiness than a trip to Bali. But it's impossible to compare until you've experienced both. Maybe kids will help in your old age. Realistically, if you invest all the money you save on your kids, you can ensure yourself a pretty good retirement. It's a matter of financial discipline. I could go on, but the thought would be the same. Children are a questionable investment at best. Okay, if careers and finances have such a significant impact on fertility, then governments could do more to help families with children. Long maternal and paternal leaves, tax cuts, financial aid, etc. If children are no longer a huge burden and parents have more time and money for themselves, the birth rate will go up. Well, in theory. In practice, across wealthy nations, having fully subsidized childcare doesn't lead to more births. There are several reasons. First, even if the state provides maternity leave, free kindergartens, school and allowances, parents will still be at a disadvantage. They will still have to spend part of their budget on the child, and they will not be able to devote as much time to work or leisure as before. Second, there is an interesting study about what influences Canadian women's desire to have children, and here are the top worries that make them less likely to have a baby in the next 2 years. Number 1, want to grow as a person. Number 2, need to focus on career. Note the similarity with the first point. So the decision to have children is influenced not so much by money itself, but by the desire to fulfill oneself. With children, working 16 hours a day to achieve the highest heights is simply impossible. The state might give you money, but not self-realization or status. Another way to deal with the low fertility is immigration. Locals don't give birth, bring in people from other countries. This method also has problems. To compensate for low birth rates, developed nations need to take in hundreds of thousands of migrants a year. You likely realize without me that hundreds of thousands of newcomers in the country is a challenge. It's not because immigrants are inherently evil. The problems arise simply because people are from different countries, speak different languages, practice different religions, and generally see the world differently. Integrating new people into society is an incredibly difficult task, and if you cannot do it effectively, you get a crisis. In many countries, migrants are disproportionately represented among criminals and the unemployed. I'm a migrant myself, and I realize that the unemployed and criminals are a smaller portion of those who have arrived. Most are decent, hard-working people. So I do not blame only migrants for the migration problem. Locals are part of that too. Many people just don't like outsiders, regardless of whether they are good or not. If you have the wrong skin color or the wrong accent, you are not wanted here. Contradictions between locals and migrants create tension. The tension can erupt into violence, protests, radicalization, and social division. The United States has been relatively successful in dealing with migration. I say relatively because there are problems, of course there are. But America by and large is more of a success story. More than 2 million people from all over the world move in every year. The USA is a superpower built by people of different races and nationalities. So in theory, migration could indeed be a good solution. But the US is in a unique position. No other country in the world has such an image. Millions of ambitious people want to come to the USA to fulfill their dreams. If you are a scientist, entrepreneur or actor, the USA is the best choice. Millions of children live thousands of miles away from America and don't even know English, but they watch American films in dubbing, listen to American music and enjoy American fast food. They develop a positive image of the United States. Many of the most ambitious and talented end up there. But what about Slovakia? Have you dreamt of moving to Slovakia and realizing your Slovakian dream? Or maybe you desire to move to Mongolia. It is much more difficult for such countries to attract skilled migrants. Those countries have the opposite problem. All competent and ambitious people live in search of better opportunities, for example, to the United States. According to Gallup's poll, many times more people want to move to the US than anywhere else. So the USA can fill its demographic needs with the best people, the most talented, hardworking and law-abiding. On the other hand, the less attractive a country is to migrants, the less chance it has of successfully implementing a mass migration policy. Another advantage of the US is its history, or national myth. The country was built by migrants. The US is a melting pot where people of different nationalities and races have been living for a very long time. So everyone is used to diversity. In many mono-ethnic countries, the attitude towards outsiders is much worse, and closing demographic holes with migrants just won't work without causing a severe political crisis. The bottom line is that solving the demographic decline with migration may work for some developed countries that are able to attract the right people. And I say may work for some because even a rich country like Sweden is reducing the immigration rate, because the political climate in the country is becoming shaky. If your country is not in the top 20 in terms of economic and political indicators, if it is mono-ethnic and people are wary of outsiders, migration will not help. Okay, financial support for families has almost no effect on fertility, migration works for some countries but not for all countries. Let's discuss religion. Religious people have higher fertility rates than non-religious people. That is especially true for people who actively practice religion. However, religious people are hardly capable of saving developed nations, and here is why. Christians are the largest group on the planet, and in Europe in particular. Their birth rate is higher than that of non-religious people, but not significantly so. It is still below the replacement level. The other problem is that large number of people stop associating themselves with Christianity. Pew Research Center projections show that the population of Christians will fall. Muslims have the highest fertility in Europe. The rate is about 2.6, while the non-Muslims have about 1.6. But for total fertility to be at 2.1, you would need 50% Muslims in Europe. Even in a high migration scenario, by 2050, Europe will only have 14% Muslims, and the overall population will still be going downhill. Okay, we've discussed economic stimulus, migration, religion, and it all looks bleak. Is there still some hope that the demographics will improve in the near future? If change is possible, it has to start in people's heads. While doing the research for this video, I couldn't help but notice that the fertility problem is ultimately rooted in culture and values. When people from developed countries say they cannot afford children, what they mean is that they will not be able to afford the same level of consumption and aspirations if they have children. It is not about survival. People used to live much worse and could afford much less. Right now, citizens of some developing countries live in terrible conditions and have lots of children. Muslims and Jews also have higher birth rates, although they live no better than the average German or Japanese. So fertility is a question of values. For both men and women in developed society, the most important thing is to build a career, make $1 million, and something like visit 100 countries. Children are at best a tick in the list of common achievements, and at worst, a hindrance. Can we shift the culture and people's priorities? Yes, we have some examples of how fertility can be high despite everything I've covered in this video. But I tell you right away that no one would want to pay that price for stable demographics. Let's look at the first example of an anomaly in the global demographic trend – the baby boom. The decline in fertility in developed countries is not a new phenomenon. It began as early as the late 19th century, as industrialization and urbanization gained momentum. Most factors that influenced the decision to have fewer children were already in place back then. In Britain, for example, by 1935 the birth rate was already below the replacement level. But from 1945 until about the end of the 60s, something unusual happened. The birth rates skyrocketed across the globe. That period is called the baby boom, and people born during that period are called boomers. What happened? In 1945, the bloodiest war in human history ended – World War II. From 1939 to 1945, people lived in fear and uncertainty. A bomb could land on your house, or there could be famine. Not many people are ready to have children in such an environment. But in the end, the war ended and people became optimistic. The future couldn't be worse than the recent past was. Humankind expected only a better life ahead. All the people who wanted to have children but put them off because of uncertainty started having children. Purely mathematically, the growth during the baby boom was much greater than the losses from the war itself. But creating hell on earth to make life better afterwards is a horrible idea. Another example that does not fit the general fertility pattern is Israel. Israel has had fertility above replacement level for many years. This is not the case for countries with such a high GDP per capita. The country is either economically developed or it has a lot of children, not both. But even that is not the point. We could say that Equatorial Guinea or Saudi Arabia are also outliers because with relatively high GDP, they also have high fertility. Let's even ignore that GDP is high there because of oil. Look at this graph. In Guinea and Saudi Arabia, birth rates predictably fall every year. That is, they are moving along with the global trend. And in Israel, over the last 30 years, fertility has remained stable between 2.9 and 3.1. The line on the graph is effectively straight. How so? This is not because of religion. Yes, ultra-Orthodox Haredi Jews and Muslims have high birth rates, but even secular non-religious Jews have fertility around a healthy 2 for a long time. That is higher than in other developed economies. A full explanation that takes into account all factors would require a separate video. Here, I will focus on the most important one. The Jews have a purpose. There is a fundamental idea at the heart of the nation that is not tied to economic growth or individual freedom as in other developed countries. Jews are a nation that has struggled for thousands of years for its existence. They have lived all over the world without a state and have suffered discrimination and persecution. That culminated in World War II and the Holocaust, during which the Nazis murdered about 6 million Jews. The overall Jewish population is still lower than it was before World War II, and there remains a sense of obligation among the Jewish people to make up for the losses. Quote, "The collective fear of annihilation, it continues to haunt us, and children are seen as symbolizing a continuance of life, of survival." End quote. Today, this idea of struggle for survival has not gone away. Muslim countries in the neighborhood are not very friendly, to put it mildly, and it takes people to survive. Quote, "We hear that if we don't have enough citizens, we don't have enough soldiers." And people are acting on those messages whether they are aware they are or not. End quote. Add to that the potential threat within. 18% of Israelis are Muslims who have a higher birth rate. To effectively protect Jewish interests, Jews must remain in the majority, and high fertility is necessary for that. The bottom line is that the meta-narrative that lies in history, religion, and today's dangers creates the value of procreation for many Jews. I will echo my point about the baby boom phenomenon. It's a bad idea to use an existential crisis as a tool to increase the birth rate. But is it possible to change people's views on procreation without the horrors of war and the struggle for survival? Maybe, but I still cannot see how the situation can change without some crisis. I think that until people face the consequences of a childless life, nothing will change. When the economy starts to tank and seniors start dying alone in poverty, then maybe people will realize the importance of a higher birth rate. Perhaps in times of deep crisis there will be a demand for large families. Perhaps then, people with 10 children will have a higher status than people with $10 million. Or maybe it won't be so bad, maybe AI will solve most of our problems. But that's a topic for a separate video.